Good afternoon. This is the May 4th, 2021 meeting of the Denver Landmark Preservation Commission. I'll call this meeting to order. Let's begin with introductions of the commissioners. And since I'm already chatting, I'll start. My name is Kelly Wemple. I'm an architect and I'm nominated by the American Institute of Architects. Brad?
Yeah, hi, my name is Brad Gassman. I'm an architect nominated by History Colorado.
Graham?
I'm Graham Johnson, a Preservation Project Manager nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie Johnson. I'm a Historic Preservation Project Manager, and I was nominated from the community at large.
Gary?
Hi, I'm Gary Petrie. I'm an architect and I was nominated by the Denver Planning Board.
Erica? You're on mute. Nope, can't hear you.
Now you can hear me. Okay, sorry about that. Hi, my name is Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant, and I'm an at-large member.
Great, and Anne?
I'm Ann Wattenberg. I'm an architect nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
Jen, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm Jen Capetto. I'm landmark preservation staff, and I'll be off video for most of the call.
But you will be providing a timer for everyone.
I will.
So,
Yes.
applicants and people providing public comments, make sure to look at Jen's video for the timer. All right, we do have one meeting record on the agenda today, and that is the April 20th meeting record. Did commissioners have any comments? And if not, would someone like to make a motion?
I can make a motion.
Great.
I move to approve the April 20th, 2021 meeting minutes for the Landmark Preservation Commission.
Thank you, Brad. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Graham. All right, I will call for the vote. Brad?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And Kelly? Aye. All right, so the motion passes unanimously and the meeting record is approved. Okay, at the beginning of every landmark meeting, we like to set aside some time for public comments. We will have public comment periods for the projects that we're hearing today later. So this is just for preservation matters in general. And if you would like to provide a public comment, if you're joining by phone, please email landmark@denvergov.org and provide your name, phone number, and whether you want to provide a public comment now or for a project later on the agenda. And if you're joining by computer, just use the raise hand button in Zoom. We also have someone at the web building. Who's there today?
Emily is.
Oh, okay, great. So Emily, just let us know if anyone is at the building and would like to provide public comments.
I don't see any hands raised right now. We don't have anyone who's calling in on the phone.
All right. Then we'll go ahead and move forward. So first up, we have our consent agenda items. So let's see, we have 3 projects on the consent agenda today. Did any commissioners need to recuse themselves? And if not, were there any projects that need to be taken off consent or clarifications that need to be made? Nope. All right, then who's going to make the motion?
I can make the motion.
Thanks, Anne.
This is Ann. Hi. I move to approve consent agenda items number 2021-ZLAM-094, 1100 Bannock, the Evans School, 1100 Bannock, which is also 1115 Acoma, the Evans School. 2021-ZLAM-022, 3273 and 3275 Osceola Street, Packard Hill, and 2021-TAXC-006, 1928 East 14th Avenue in the Wyman District.
Thank you, Anne. Do we have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Julie. I will call for the vote. Brad,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
and Kelly. Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the motion passes. If you're on the call for one of the consent agenda items, then your project has been approved and you're free to hop off the call. All right. So next up, we have one public hearing scheduled today. So the process is up on the screen. You can see, I'll go ahead and announce the public hearing, and then staff will introduce the application and make their recommendation. Following that, we'll have the applicant presentation, and you have up to 10 minutes to present. Make sure to get it all in the 10 minutes, because once we hear public comments, we won't be able to come back and talk to you after that. We'll move straight into deliberation. So after that 10-minute applicant presentation, we'll open it up for public comments. For public hearings, we have 3 minutes each for public comments. So again, if you'd like to comment on this project that we're going to have a hearing for today, please email landmark@denvergov.org if you're calling by phone. If not, you can use the hand raise function in Zoom. After we hear all the public comments, I'll go ahead and close the hearing and the commission will move into deliberation. Okay, so with that, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing for 2021-LMDEMO-166 at 150 Race Street. And we have Evan presenting this project. So take it away.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I believe I'm controlling the slide. Yes, okay. First up, we have 150 Race Street. This is actually the public hearing, and then as well the first design review agenda item, but within the scope of the public hearing, we'll just be reviewing the demolition scope. So 150 Race Street is a contributing building in the Country Club Historic District, having been constructed in 1926 in the Tudor Revival style. The house is located mid-block between East 1st Avenue and East 3rd Avenue. The applicant is proposing to demolish 45% of the existing structure. This includes large areas of demolition of the historic walls at the north, south, and east elevations, along with the majority of a large non-historic rear addition believed to have been constructed in 2012. Here you can see the demolition floor plans. So you can see the large areas along the north, which is at the top of the screen. Portions of the east wall, which that sort of projecting box on the east side is that one-story non-historic addition, and then as well large portions of the south elevation. Additionally, the applicant is proposing to completely demolish a 1.5-story front addition with a reverse dormer and a 1-story bay window on the south elevation to allow for the restoration of the front facade of the house and for the construction of a large 2-story side addition. So here you can see the proposed roof demolition, showing the areas to be removed of the roof to allow for the new addition. And then that front area in the bottom left is the front addition, and you can see the footprint of the bay window. And these are the elevation demolition calculations. So staff have reviewed photographs of the addition and Sanborn maps. And believe that these features, so here you can see the front addition in the left photograph, and then as well the bay window in the right photograph. Staff have reviewed photographs of the additions and sandboard maps and believe that these features, if not original to the house, were constructed very soon after completion of the main portion of the house. The footprints of the front addition and the bay window are both clearly evident in the 1929 sandboard map, which you can see here on the left, meaning that they were both constructed within 3 years of the main portion of the house and well within the period of significance for the district. The footprint of the front addition is also clearly evident in a 1933 aerial photograph of Denver, which you can see here zoomed in on the house on the right. The applicant has suggested that the aerial photograph shows a roof configuration different from the existing, claiming that this front addition has been significantly altered. Staff have reviewed the aerial photograph closely and disagree with the applicant's assessment, finding that the aerial photograph shows the existing roof configuration with the reverse dormer. So you can see the footprint of the addition there in the bottom left of the house. We believe you can see the angle of the hipped roof of the front addition, and then that light area on the north side of that front addition, we believe is the lighter area of the reverse dormer. So we believe that that shows the existing front roof condition. The applicant has also argued that the front addition and bay window are not typical of the Tudor Revival style. However, staff again disagree. Groupings of tall, narrow casement windows, as are found on the west and south elevations of the addition, are highly typical of Tudor Revival houses, as are reverse dormers and full height bay windows. All these features can be found on numerous other Tudor Revival houses in the Country Club Historic District. Additionally, the 1.5-story massing of the front addition introduces a varied eave height, a common feature of Tudor Revival houses. Therefore, staff have found that the addition is compatible with the Tudor Revival character of the house, or at the very least does not detract from it. In reviewing the available information, staff have found that the existing front addition and bay window on both, on 150 Race Street should be considered historic, having been constructed within the period of significance in the same style as the main portion of the house, and given that they retain integrity. At this time, the front addition and bay window are both at least 92 years old and were present on this house for at least 19 years of the period of significance. Per design guideline 2.29, which states that one should quote, preserve a historic addition that has achieved significance in its own right, staff are recommending that both the front addition and the bay window be retained, though the commission may wish to debate the merits of the front addition and bay windows' historic integrity and significance. Given that the majority of the rest of the demolition has concentrated at the rear of the structure and will have no impact on the street-facing west facade, staff are recommending conditional approval of the partial demolition. I also want to note, as of 5 p.m. on March 23rd, the day that the staff report and application materials were uploaded to the LPC website, staff received 12 letters of support for this project. These were provided along with those materials on the website. Since then, staff have received an additional 6 letters of support, which were forwarded onto the commission directly yesterday evening. I also wanted to touch on, prior to this meeting, I received a couple of questions from Kelly regarding whether or not we had any information about the condition of any covered masonry, that being the masonry that would be covered by the front addition. We do not have any information on that. I'm not aware of any investigative demolition that the applicants undertook to look at what may have been the original facade of the house. Kelly also asked questions about matching masonry, which pertains, I think, more to the next item, the design review item. But again, we did not go into great detail with the applicants on that, given we do not support this demolition, and we are also recommending denial of that next item. But I believe Kelly will ask the applicants some additional questions about those things, and they may have more details. So happy to take any questions from the commission.
Thanks, Evan. And yeah, I'll go ahead and ask the applicant that, but I appreciate your feedback. Any other questions for staff? No. Okay, is the applicant present, and can we promote them to be a presenter? I think I may have seen them promoted. So you have up to 10 minutes to provide a presentation, and please unmute yourself when you're ready. You can begin. Please start with your name and address for the record.
You hear me?
Yes.
Can you turn on my video or is that not possible? I don't know how to do that. That's okay.
I think that's something that you would need to do yourself.
Okay, that's okay. I'll just talk. Hi, my name is Elizabeth Thompson. I am the architect and owner with my husband Bennett of 150 Ray Street. I would like to thank Evan for his time and all of you for being here. I know you give your time and expertise tirelessly for this commission, and I recognize you have a great responsibility to the city. And so I want you to know that I am here today for the same reason that you are. I love significant historic structures, and I believe that it is important to preserve and protect them. I come before you after extensive research and study of our home. I did not come to this proposal lightly or hastily, but rather with very much thought and concern for the historic house itself, as well as the street and the neighborhood. As a licensed architect with a master's degree from the Harvard Design School, I studied historic preservation extensively as a student and continually do so professionally. Before moving on to Ray Street, Bennett and I lived in Congress Park in another historic home, so we are very familiar with Landmark and its tenants. We looked for several years before finding our current home, where we have resided for over 3 years. Before we even saw the interior, we were in love with the large lot and Tudor architecture. That said, as an architect, I was struck by the strange southwest roof and its origins. After several years living in the house, studying the interior and exterior, researching documents, and talking to neighbors, it is very clear that this front room was not original and actually hides some of the beautiful original design. Its roof and windows have been modified over time, and the bay window on the south side was also not original and has been altered. So I come before you today with a rather simple request. We would like to restore the front house facade as it was originally designed and constructed. While the Sanborn map is an important marker of time and record, it is a two-dimensional image of one point in time. Its notes and markings indicate some details about what existed, but the drawing itself only documents the footprint of an exterior wall. It does not take into account windows or doors or the shape of the roof or the fact that those elements have changed over time. We must study the architecture itself in order to understand what came first, what of the original still exists, and what has changed. So while the front room and bay window are shown to exist on the Sanborn map, the 3D reality is that their composition and design details break from and detract from certain key Tudor features of the original house. They unfortunately conceal the simple, beautiful, and prominent characteristics of the original. First, to focus on the bay window, and to be clear, as it was a bit unclear in the staff write-up, the bay window is not part of the front facade. It is on the south facade, and it is not visible from the street in front of the home. It is actually hidden behind the front addition and meets the rear brick wall of the addition at an acute angle that shows these components were not original construction and not built in sync. The 3 existing round brick window wells, 2 of which are still in their original location and 1 of which is hidden under the added bay window in question, indicate that whomever built these add-ons had little regard for the home's architectural details. When adding the bay window, they didn't even remove the round window well underneath. They just covered it over and created a dead space beneath it that obscures and covers the basement window. The bay window has also been cannibalized over time. The replacement windows, the only double hung windows in the structure in the entire house with wide rather than tall emphasis, conflict in height and shape with the house's predominant barrel vaulted interior ceilings. The interior moldings do not match those of the adjoining rooms, and random hardware hangs from various exterior parts, indicating numerous missing architectural features. As I mentioned before, one aspect of the house that we truly love is the lot and yard, especially the large iconic tree with the wraparound porch and surrounding trees, plants, and flowers. In seeking to honor the original layout of the house and lot and maintain these elements, we have endeavored to stay within the existing footprint, adjusting the lot coverage by only 1%. However, because of the historic tree, this design proposal is possible only with the removal of the added bay window. Now, to focus on the front addition. While the tall casement windows, lower eaves, and reverse dormer of the front addition may not be atypical of some Tudor stylings, which was highlighted in the write-up and Evan just now, they are not part of the original construction or consistent with the overall design of this house. Reverse dormers do exist in Country Club, but when used are a repeated design element. Furthermore, the second story window in this case clearly was originally very different. It originally existed in the same plane as the others on the front facade, obvious from the original wall cavity in the upstairs master bedroom. Additionally, between 2000 and 2002, under a prior owner, the windows on the first floor of the front addition were replaced without landmark approval in order to be appropriately restored. But that never happened and was not enforced by Landmark. We have no record of those prior front addition windows, so the existing ones bear no historical significance. Also, the eccentric roof extension is in no way typical of the Tudor style, nor common anywhere in Country Club. An addition and/or Tudor roof would have a front-facing gable. If a Tudor roof were to extend down from an upper story, it would still be typically part of a front-facing gable. It would not extend downward and outward from the second-story roof plane on the same slope as it does here, not to mention the extremely peculiar hipped portion that extends from the side southern brick wall. Moreover, in consultation with photo experts and architects and corroborated by neighbors, the aerial shows that the front roof addition was originally different and separate from the main house roof. To the right or south of the front door is a round window well with identical first and second story windows centered above it. Indeed, all of the houses in the main house, other than those in the front addition and bay window, are identical to these two windows. Each has the same window height, width, and sill height. Since the same window was imitated in the reverse dormer, albeit protruding out of plane, it is evident there would have also been this same triad of a round window well with two matching windows above it, right where the front addition now sits. The removal of the front room would allow for the restoration of this design feature on the front western facade consistent with the home's original design. Finally, perhaps the most important detail that we can extrapolate from the Sanborn map is the continuity of houses that form the street composition. All the houses along the east side of Ray Street were built within the same 3 to 4 year time period and all had front western facades that perfectly aligned. Even the house at the corner of First and Race, which faces south and fronts on First, still aligns on the western facade with the row of houses to the north. This was clearly intentional to create a beautiful line of houses along the eastern side of Ray Street. This is emblematic of the woven fabric of the streets in Country Club, beautiful tree-lined streets with lines of historic homes. On Ray Street, the front addition of our house is the only anomaly distorting that initial urban plan, interrupting the alignment of the facades of all the other homes. The Sanborn map clearly illustrates how this addition ruins the otherwise beautiful symmetry of the streetscape. Removing this front room would reinstate the linear row of houses and retain the spaciousness sense of living in a park and keep the broad front and side yard setbacks to explicit goals of the Country Club guidelines. Now, I realize and appreciate that the period of significance is intended to honor the historic houses and any additions that may be historically significant built during that period. However, as I have detailed through careful study and documentation, these two additions do not exhibit historical significance nor any historical integrity with the balance of the original home design or the original design of the entirety of this block of Ray Street. Instead, these two additions denigrate and hide some of what was so beautiful about the original. The installation of these two deconstructed the original window pattern, covered over the prominent decorative double flue chimney, and desecrated the brick round window wells. Additionally, they have been altered so much over time that neither retains any historical importance in their own right. In conclusion, one of the premises of this commission has been that new additions should be distinct from the main house so that, should someone in the future want to restore the original, it would be obvious what was different. This very principle upholds the importance of the original historic design over insignificant and poorly designed additions. Especially in our case, the original's importance should outweigh accessory additions that exhibit no important architectural elements, do not correlate to the rest of the house, do not align with the entirety of the street, and in fact obscure important original architectural design and details. There are obviously situations when a certain house or landmark must require special consideration. Our proposal meets the goals of the commission, satisfies the spirit of the guidelines, and conflicts with the Sanborn map only in the actual existence of these insignificant additions at a specific point in time. There are certainly instances of previous exceptions to the guidelines. While we all consult Sanborn for guidance, it should not be the exclusive consideration. Evident from the more than 15 support letters we received from interested neighbors on our block, on our street, and on nearby streets throughout the neighborhood, every resident who reviews the design supports the proposed project. Even those without design expertise agree that the front room is out of character with the balance of the home and the street. Most importantly, the Country Club Design Review Board, made up of both neighbors and architects who ardently support protecting the historic nature of homes in the neighborhood, all unconditionally support the proposal. These individuals are among the most discerning as they are both dedicated to preservation and they live here. The project as proposed supports the Landmark and Country Club mandates to protect character-defining, historically significant structures. We believe we have presented substantial evidence that supports approval of our application and therefore hope the Commission will support our request to restore the original design and repair the front western facade with the removal of the front addition and the south side bay window. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? No?
Sorry, I figured out how to turn my video on.
Oh, hello, good to see you. So I just have one, and Evan had kind of alluded to it earlier. I was wondering, so if you were to remove that historic addition at the front, at the south west corner, then do you have any reason to believe that the original brick would be in good condition there? And what would happen if it wasn't? Do you have a plan for that?
Yes, actually, the original wall, you can hit on it and you can feel the brick that's within the, I'm sitting in the room actually. So it does exist, and it's, 12 inches wide, as I documented in the photo journal. So it's obviously original. So I can't confirm. I could dig away at it, obviously. However, because the front addition was added not long after, and it has a lot of brick that would match, we could use those, the brick from any of the removal, in fact. Obviously, on the north side, we can't fit we can't fit one car actually in that garage. And so we would have all of the historic brick from the north side. And at least the garage part was original. There was another addition on the back part of that, but we would have a lot of extra brick to make sure that the front was restored exactly as it should be.
Gotcha. And is there, I'm guessing it's probably plaster that's on the brick. Do you know if that's the case?
Yes. You mean it's covering the original?
Yeah.
Yes, it's plaster.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Can I say one other thing? I'm sorry, I just realized too on the sandbar, I don't know if it's just because it's diagrammatic, but actually the outline is not how it correctly is. You can see from the picture that I think Evan left up that in the existing condition, the bay window abuts that wall, but the sandboard actually shows them as distinct and different, which I think shows also that this front addition has been altered. So I'd just like to point that out as well, in addition to the very strange juxtaposition of those two elements.
All right. Thank you for your time. Okay, so let's go ahead and open it up for public comments. Is anyone on the line who would like to provide a comment?
Don't see any hands raised. So if you would like to make public comment, please use the hand raise function, which I think is at the bottom of your screen.
And I know, as Evan mentioned, we received a lot of letters of support from neighbors and the RNO.
Yep, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so no.
Okay, so maybe everybody sent in their comments already. Okay, well, if we don't have any public comments, then I'm going to close the public hearing and we can move into deliberation. All right, what did everybody think?
Kelly?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is Evan. I can't turn my video on, but I did want to just couple of recap.
Great, thanks, Evan.
Good. I did just want to point out to a number of Elizabeth's points about restoring the original facade. The design guidelines for Denver landmarks are based on the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation and not restoration. And so there is more of an emphasis on acknowledging change over time and incorporating, respecting that and preserving that, as opposed to restoring to particular points in history. I also, Elizabeth made reference to a previous window violation, which she did bring up with me, and I did a little bit of investigating. We don't have a lot of information. The records just are not very clear from that time. But there is a Google Street View image from prior to that violation, which does show the openings in that front addition in their current configuration. So it seems that the LPC required partial replacement of the violation windows elsewhere on the building, which were windows that did not match the windows that existed at that time. And they may not have required replacement of the violation windows on the front addition because they were more in character with what had been there before. So staff believe that there have not been major alterations to the openings on this front addition or again to the roof form. And as well to Elizabeth's point about the Sanborns, she's correct that there is a slight discrepancy in the footprint, but something as minor as that is, I think, quite typical of Sanborn maps. They are not perfectly accurate, but staff believe that this matches what the Sanborns are trying to show. Thank you.
Thanks for the clarifications, Evan. And I was thinking the same thing, Evan, that, you know, rehabilitation versus restoration are two very different approaches. And I think given the proposed changes to the building, this is not a restoration project, because a restoration would be restoring the building back to a date certain. So it would not involve adding on. So good comments. All right. What did everyone think? Erica?
Yeah. So while I definitely can see some of the applicant's points about some inconsistencies or kind of lack of tying in well to the original building, I do believe that this addition does meet the design guidelines as far as being a historic addition that should be retained given its length of time that it's been there. I think it is overall consistent with the style, and so therefore has gained its own significance that adds to the house. So in reading the design guidelines, keeping in mind the very cogent points of restoration versus rehabilitation, I do think that it's appropriate to deny this application for demolition.
And Erica, you mentioned that you would support denial of the application. The staff report is recommending conditional approval. Do you?
Correct. No, I'm sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. I do mean following the staff recommendations of conditional approval with having one of the conditions that the front addition remains.
Okay, thanks. Other thoughts? Anne, what did you have?
I agree with Erica's assessment, and I also think that the addition gives the house a different character, and that's not necessarily a detrimental thing. In any event, it's been there for a long time. There is no remedy that actually would meet the guidelines in terms of removing it. But I think it gives the house a tremendous character also.
Thanks, Anne. Graham?
Kelly, yeah, I'd jump in and say, you know, guideline 2.29 that talks specifically about an addition that's achieved its own significance is one that we don't reference too often because we're talking a lot about little lean-tos that might have been added on the back of a house, which may have been a porch, may not even have a foundation, and a lot of times were pretty temporarily or hastily built. But I think the fact that the original brick matches so closely, I know the applicant included some mortar color that wasn't quite the same, but it appears that there was care to a certain level, you know, to match this when it was built. And the fact that it is such a long-standing part, you know, 92 years is older than some of our other landmark buildings in the city. So I think that actually on the commission, this is the first time that we've really had to circle around this particular guideline, but I think it's an interesting situation here and one where it applies particularly well.
Good point. Thanks, Graham. Is everyone in agreement here? Seeing a yes from Gary and Julie. Brad, what did you think? Yeah. Okay. I would agree with everything that's been said, and I don't want to add too much time, but I also appreciate the applicant's due diligence that they did, and I did find it compelling that they said, you know, this is really the only thing that protrudes out beyond any of the houses on the block. However, I think our guidelines are just very clear, as Graham had mentioned about 2.29. And I think that this addition does appear to have retained its integrity in its form and materials. So I would agree with what's been said. The one thing I'm wondering if any of you have thoughts on is the bay window. As the applicant had mentioned, it is behind this addition, so it's not very visible from the street. I'm not opposed to a plan that might incorporate its removal because it's not visible from the street. I understand that the staff's assessment is that it is likely historic, maybe not original, but historic. But due to its lack of visibility from the street, if that addition is retained, did anybody have thoughts on that? Maybe I'm just a minority in that.
No, I think I agree with you, Kelly. Also, I do, again, thanks to the applicant's due diligence, which I also appreciated, and thanks to them for all of the work they've put into this. I do think it doesn't retain the integrity quite as the front brick addition does. The windows in it are rather strange and are such a prominent feature of it that I think the integrity has been diminished there. So I am open to maybe not retaining that in a different design.
Maybe we should just do some nodding heads. Do you shake yes if you feel that it could be removed, and no if you think it needs to be retained, just so I understand where you fall on this? And Gary and Ann, if you have something to add.
Well, and I think I would go along with that, but because of the double French doors above the bay window and how an addition would address the removal of the bay window, they're kind of connected. So I guess, you know, for example, if we supported the removal of the bay window, how the openings on the second floor of the south facade, south elevation would be addressed, would be a critical component of whatever approvable addition there might be.
I agree with you, Gary. I guess I just figure that's kind of up to them to do design.
I do think that it's possible that that bay window was original to the building, because it's not, the fact that you've got one of those windows that kind of opens to a blind wall. That's if both of those, if the bay window and the addition were done at the same time, that it wouldn't have been done like that. And so I think it's more likely that the bay window was original. It may have been heavily altered over time, but it could have been original. And there are Tudor style buildings that have bay windows, especially on the south side, kind of scattered around Denver.
I completely agree with Gary that I think that's an excellent point, that it could very likely predate the front addition and be original to the house.
I do think the applicant provided a few things that made me believe it's probably not original, though. The break in the flooring, and yes, there's a blind wall in the window and interstitial space to the basement, but there is also the arched well found under there, which it seems like if that was original, why would that be there? And why would the wood flooring break and have, so I don't know. And it's hard to tell. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I guess I'm comfortable with it being removed. I'm fine with it staying as well. But considering it's not as visible, that was my 2 cents.
I guess my issue is when I look at the guidelines that are listed in the staff report, they just talk about material. They don't talk about material that is visible from the right of way or not visible from the right of way. And maybe I'm just misreading them. But for instance, 5.7 is plan projects to minimize demolition to a historic structure, including its historic additions and accessory structures. And that doesn't reference, I'm just reading the staff report, that doesn't reference whether you see it from the right of way. In fact, none of the guidelines that are listed mention what's visible from the right of way. And the only reason I say this is, the front edition is really pretty odd, but we all agree that it was original material. So odd is not a reason why you deny something. It is what it is. And I sort of don't see how you can then say that the bay window is not equally important as again, because these guidelines don't reference what is visible from the right of way.
Thanks, Anne. It sounds like I'm in the minority, so that's fine. Would someone like to make a motion?
I can make the motion.
Okay, thanks.
I move to conditionally approve application 2021-LMDEMO-166 for the partial demolition of 150 Race Street as per design guidelines 2.29, 2.55, and 2.57, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the conditions: 1, that a replacement addition be approved prior to beginning partial demolition of the existing structure, and 2, that the historic front addition and bay window not be demolished.
Thanks, Erica. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
This is Brett.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
Brad.
Graham. Thank you, Brad.
That's
All right, then I will call for the vote. Brad,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Kelly, aye. All right, the motion passes unanimously and the project is conditionally approved per the staff suggested motion. Okay, so that was the only hearing on the agenda today. So now we're going to move into our design review projects. The process is very similar to what we just did. It's almost the exact same. The only difference is that the public comment period is 2 minutes instead of 3 minutes now. So I'll go ahead and introduce the project. Staff will then present the application and their recommendation. Then the applicant has up to 10 minutes to present, and we'll follow that up with public comments and move into deliberation. So we're going to see the same project here on design review. It's number 2021-COA-181 at 150 Race Street.
Hello again. All right, I'm struggling to turn on my video while I'm presenting. So maybe you'll just have to listen to me and not look. So again, we're looking at
real quick, if you hover over your name and left click, you should be able to turn on your video.
In the participants panel or the main?
If you just hover over your video and click on it, it should say start video.
There we go. There we go. Jen assisted me on that. Anyway, sorry for that. All right. So once again, we're looking at 150 Race Street, which, as we've discussed, is a contributing building in the Country Club Historic District, constructed in 1926 in the Tudor Revival style. As we discussed, the applicant is proposing to demolish large portions of the structure, including the front addition and bay window, which the commission has now rejected. So those, I apologize if I'm getting a little bit muddled now that I know the conditions from the first review. So let's move on to look at the addition. So the proposed addition will largely be concentrated at the rear of the structure. Here you can see the proposed roof demolition on the left, and then the proposed roof plan on the right. Again, the proposed roof plan does not include the bay window and front addition, which the commission is now required to be retained. But here you can see the form of the rear addition. So it's primarily made up of 3 east-facing gable roofs of different heights and widths, along with north and south-facing gables. So you can see those 3 east-facing gables, and then the small gable extensions on the north and south. And here on the left is the existing east or rear elevation. On the right is the proposed east elevation. So the ridge of each gable will be lower than any ridges on the historic house to which they abut, and all roof slopes match that of the historic house except for the northernmost ridge on the far right of the proposed elevation, which is slightly shallower, so that that ridge will sit below the ridge of the garage wing of the historic house. The southern and northern portions of the addition both feature porches that are covered by the second stories of the addition. So you can see those covered porches on the left and right of the proposed elevation. The proposed detailing of the addition is compatible with the Tudor Revival character of the historic house. The addition will be constructed from brickwork, matching the existing house with simple eave and rake details, like those found on the primary house. The fenestration will be composed of groupings of tall and narrow casement windows and doors, along with a second-story square projecting bay window with a flared copper roof. The covered porches will be supported by heavy timber posts and beams with curved brackets. Those are proposed to be from reclaimed wood. Overall, the detailing of the addition is highly replicative and includes Tudor Revival details not found on the historic house, potentially creating a false sense of history. However, these details are found on other Tudor Revival houses in the district, and the Country Club design guidelines do allow for more ornamented additions than the citywide guidelines. Along with the added area at the rear, the applicant is proposing to expand the house to both the north and south. The northern addition will expand the existing garage by just under 2 feet to the north, so as to allow 2 modern cars to be parked in the garage. You can see on the left is the north elevation with the existing on top and the proposed below, and on the right is the west elevation, or the main elevation of the house. So you can see in the lower left of the west elevation, that small projection of just under 2 feet on the north side of the garage. The street-facing wall of the attached garage will retain the original opening size and overall dimensions, with the northern addition being set back approximately 1 foot. While this setback is minimal, the garage itself is substantially set back from the front of the house, and the addition will be minimally visible. At the south elevation, the applicant is proposing to construct a 12-foot wide addition that will be set back just under 3 feet from the front addition of the house. The addition will be 1.5 feet lower than the main mass of the house and will feature a small wall dormer similar to those existing on the front of the house, and French doors opening onto the front yard. The south side of the addition features groupings of tall and narrow casement windows and part of the proposed covered rear porch. While the detailing and proportions of the proposed south addition are compatible with the historic house, staff have found that the addition is located too near to the front of the house and is not subordinate. Staff have recommended to the applicant that the south addition be substantially set back from the front of the house, as both the landmark design guidelines and the country club design guidelines recommend that additions be pushed towards the rear. Additionally, this current configuration would require removal of those 2 features that we discussed in the last agenda item, which you've now said should be retained. So it would not be possible to build this addition in this configuration while retaining the bay window and likely a portion of that front addition. Along with the addition, the applicant is proposing to replace all of the existing windows on the historic house. All but 2 of the windows to be replaced are non-original. The 2 original windows are located in the northwest interior corner of the house between the main mass of the house and the garage wing. So in this lower left axonometric view, you can see the 2 little windows sort of wedged in the corner. Those are the only 2 remaining original windows on the house. Given that these are not character defining of the house, staff have found that it would be appropriate to just allow a total window replacement and allow the house to have the same windows throughout. As the design of the most visible portion of the addition at the south side of the house is reliant upon removal of those historic features previously discussed, and we find that the south addition is located too close to the front of the house, we are recommending denial of this addition. Again, just to comment on the public comment we received, again, prior to March 23rd, we received 12 letters of support. Since then, an additional 6, all of which have been provided to you. Those letters don't distinguish between the demolition scope and the addition. So you should consider those as being related to this project as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Evan. Are there questions for staff? Nope. All right, let's have the applicant rejoin us. And Elizabeth, you know the drill. You have up to 10 minutes. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and share your video if you'd like. The time is yours. Thank you.
It won't let me start the video for some reason. Do you have a capability on your
Yeah,
side?
let me try that. Sorry, I'm trying to start my video and Evan and I were battling with the mouse. So hold on a second. I don't know why it's not letting people start their video today. There you go. You're in.
Okay, thank you. I obviously had a different presentation considering your discussions. I would like to say that there is a round brick window well under the, I understand you think that the bay window achieved significance. However, given what I'm about to tell you, there is very little capability of us to add on to other areas. And I would like to have you take into consideration the removal of the bay window. I understand we can't negate what you just did, but I would like you to just at least think about that. We are obviously willing to address an appellate process if possible. So I will tell you what I was going to say and you can take it from there. The addition we are proposing has several key elements that drove the outline and massing and seek to uphold landmark and country club guidelines. We will preserve the lot size and shape, the landscaping and hardscaping, most notably the large deciduous tree to the east of the porch. We will maintain and restore the existing wraparound porch, but seek to have a permanent roof over the porch, rather than the semi-permanent awning that is prone to tearing and damage from tree debris. We will predominantly add onto the home using the existing footprint, mainly adding square footage onto the existing one-story structures on the rear of the house. There is only a 1% increase to this footprint. We are limited on the lot by the following: the existing pool and hot tub, which require a surrounding life-saving buffer, so we cannot go further back, on the east. There is a large original deciduous tree that you can see from all of our neighbors' yards that is in the backyard with a round wall around it. And there is an existing historic fence, which is shared with our neighbors, the Lutzes, to the south, and it double faces and it defines their yard as well as ours. We strive to honor and preserve country club historic features, such as the beautiful gardens and landscaping that were featured on the Denver Garden Tour in 2008. The double-sided historic cedar paling fence that is no longer locally available and must be sourced using individual slats and rehoned and built by hand, part of which had to be replaced actually this past year because of the derecho that came through our city. And we are keeping the large front and side yards. Historic structures in Country Club have for decades been typically approved and built with a 1-foot setback from the front facade. In fact, there are 3 that were built in the last 5 years. We understand that you have recently made efforts with the latest revisions to the guidelines to seek some more subordinate additions. However, there is no definition of what qualifies as subordinate. Other than that, addition should ideally be set back and be constructed to the rear or side of the main historic structure when possible. Additionally, staff acknowledges that Country Club has traditionally often been more accepting of side additions. In our case, we are extremely limited in where we are able to add on. We are limited on the east by the pool and large tree, to the west by the front facade, and to the north by the setbacks and property line. We therefore need the ability to marginally add on to the south facade. Also, initially, our proposed south addition was set back this standard 1 foot, seeking to meet what we thought was acceptable within the guidelines that have endured for decades. However, after consulting with Evan and understanding that you seek a more subordinate issue and really trying to reach a compromise, we redesigned the southern addition, moving the facade an additional 2 feet eastward to help it appear more subordinate. Given the current porch location, and we are trying to keep the entire porch as is, the desire not to kill the large tree, and seeking to maintain our neighbor's lot configuration by retaining the double-sided historic fence that we share with them, the 2-foot modification allowed the western front facade on the new south addition to align with the existing fence and still meet all of these goals. I would also like to point out that the fence aligns with the back side of the front addition that you are now requiring us to keep. So I would like you to think about that. The bay window is behind that. And so there is a possibility that the existing design could work with that front addition in place, but obviously not with the bay window. So while using the dimensions of the setback is one aspect of creating a demarcation between the original main house and a new addition to make it seem more subordinate, it is also important to note that our new addition is subordinate in numerous other ways, in all of the other ways possible, actually. The roof peak is 1 foot 6 inches lower in height than the main house. At 12 foot wide, the addition is narrower than both the main house, which is 35 feet wide, and the garage, which is 20 feet wide. The windows and doors complement, but are distinctly different from the extant window and door design of the main house. By aligning the new addition with the fence, these two become linked masses associated with the backyard and therefore designated as a subsidiary. They two kind of become one. And there is also a large flowering crabapple tree which sits in the front yard right in front of where the new addition would be, that will mask it and actually highlight and frame the main house. Also, as mentioned during the demolition discussion, more than 17 neighbors and the Country Club Design Review Board all support the proposal unconditionally. I think that covers it. So I would ask that you possibly reconsider your decision on the bay window, because it really limits anything possible that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Are there any questions for the applicant? No? And everybody's clear on the bay window, what was provided in the applicant's materials? No questions on that? Okay. All right. Thank you for your time, Elizabeth. Do we have any public comments? Just a reminder, please use the hand raise function if you're joining us via your computer. Do we have anyone on the phone?
We don't have anyone on the phone, no.
Okay. No one,
and I don't see any hands raised.
No one in person, Emily?
That's a no.
Okay.
Our policy is if whoever's there will speak up if someone is there.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay. If there are no public comments, then Evan, do you have any recap?
I think just quickly, Elizabeth referenced a 1 foot front setback on other additions. She provided a number of examples of other additions in Country Club, many of which have been constructed in the last 5 years, but all of which were approved prior to the current guidelines. So there's nothing currently, I mean, our guidelines do have a 1 foot setback, but that's typically not a setback, but an offset in wall plane for a rear addition from a side elevation, as opposed to a side addition from a front elevation. But that was all I wanted to say.
Thanks, Evan. Okay, let's move into deliberation. What did everyone think? And keep in mind that the applicant asked for further feedback about the balcony. I don't know if that changes anyone's perspective or not. But what were your thoughts on the addition? let's talk about the north at the garage and the east at the rear to start, because those areas, you know, are not where that historic addition is that we had just discussed in demolition, in the demolition application. So what did everyone think about the addition to the garage and to the rear?
I think starting even small maybe, but in the same spot, those couple windows, the only two surviving, I feel like that is probably a reasonable part of a new window package. So that's a little thing, but I'll throw that out there to start.
I agree. So let's talk about windows. The only other thing I had to say about the windows is I didn't see any window details or a window schedule that indicates, you know, what are the existing opening sizes and then the new. So that's something we typically require to make sure that the openings aren't being enlarged where they're being replaced in an existing location. Obviously, new windows in the addition is a separate discussion, but I'll just add that. Any other comments on the windows?
No.
Okay. So if we're all in agreement on that, what did you think about the approximately 2-foot expansion of the garage on the north side?
Kelly, this is Brad. I'll start. I thought that was a fine addition there. I think it does really feel subordinate to the existing garage, and it gives a little more flexibility. On the back side, I was supportive of those additions as well, because I think they do a good job of really putting most of the added scope to the back of the house. So I was supportive of the north and what was going on with the back as well.
Thank you. I see some nodding heads. Was everyone in agreement with that?
Mm-hmm.
The only concern I had is the leading question I had during the demo application, which is, if I understand that the intent is to match the existing brick, and I wasn't sure how feasible that was. And now if that historic addition on the front is being retained, they're not going to be able to reuse any or salvage any of that brick to use. So if they salvage the brick on the north side, they can reuse that maybe at the garage, but might have to supplement in the back. Graham, I don't know if you have any constructability feedback, being that you are a contractor, but I've heard, you know, that it can be pretty complicated to salvage and reuse sometimes.
It depends. I think, you know, there are some good local sources for finding historic brick. Sometimes, you know, a house of this magnitude may not be a brick that was as common in a, you know, a different type of development or construction of the time. But there are 2 or 3 yards and salvage companies where we've had a lot of luck matching everything from rhyolite to unique masonry. So I would encourage, maybe just a friendly comment, and the owners and applicants may have done this, but you know, Mendoza is one, Highlands is another, and there's a couple of other local masonry specialty kind of salvage yards where that sort of research could be done, see if a good match, and if there is material that's similar, because this is a unique texture and pattern or kind of quality of the surface of the brick.
And I know we can't endorse certain companies or anything,
Yeah,
but that
I'm
is
sorry,
just
those
a
are just
friendly.
that was pure white pages information there, just local
Yeah.
Denver, but some historic resources, if you will. Correct.
Well, I agree with you, Brad, that I'm comfortable with what was shown on the north and the east. And I think Evan's staff report pretty much nailed it on the head for me. Any other comments, constructive feedback we can give to the applicant as they look at making modifications to the south portion?
I think it is maybe worth revisiting the bay window just for a minute, not to rehash what we talked about prior, but I do think that the existence of a window well under it, you know, does show that it might not have been original, which we had the conversation about with respect to the front addition also. And so the fact that either or both of those may still be close to 100 years old, that doesn't change anything we discussed previously. But Kelly, your comment about a kind of a secondary, or I know this is a unique lot, these corner lots, big lots, different siding, brings a different element there. But the fact that it is more obscured, I think is maybe worth just one more revisit, just to give the applicant that direction. I felt like we hit on that, but maybe didn't, or I wasn't fully resolved, I guess, as we talked about it on the previous application. So others may be, and it may be you and I kind of in that gray area, but figured I'd bring that back up one more time.
I'll jump in. I was not speaking at the end of our last discussion because I feel like I was kind of speaking too hastily, but I do think there is the possibility of the bay window being removed and still having an appropriate addition here on this side. So while I don't necessarily encourage the removal of the bay window, I think there might be a possibility that would be appropriate. Definitely some questions about original. I do question its integrity. I'm just not quite sure about that issue with it. And that's why I think I'm open to seeing a design that maybe still removes it and keeps the front addition.
I mean, obviously I agree with that, but I stated that in the last application. If it is helpful, I just thought I would point out that it's actually in our upcoming project that staff had outlined when considering the level of exterior change acceptable for a less visible wall on a historic structure. The primary factors to consider are, there's 4 of them, so bear with me. 1 is impacts on character defining features of a building, property, or district. Another is impacts on the preservation of a structure's overall form and mass. Another is visibility from public vantage points. So that kind of gets to that comment, Anne, that you were making about how that wasn't in that one guideline we were talking about. And then number 4 is significance of the structure, noting that a property with high level of architectural significance on all 4 sides or an individually designated landmark may not have the same flexibility. So I don't think this has a high level of architectural significance on all 4 sides or it's not an individual landmark. The visibility from public vantage points is the item that I was kind of referencing. So if that's helpful, just thought I'd mention it.
Kelly, I'll jump back into, I misspoke earlier when I said corner lot. I was thinking ahead to our next applicant, which is just up the street. But I do appreciate you bringing that up because I think, from the street and certainly behind the more massive and present front addition, it's very difficult to see the bay window.
Thanks, Graham. So we might be split. We've heard from 3 of us that we think there could be a solution. Gary, what do you think?
Well, I agree that the acceptability of removing that bay window, from my perspective, a great deal on the character of any addition that would replace it and how it is not only sympathetic but subordinate.
Thanks. Julie, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree with, I agree. I was on the fence the first time we talked about the bay window. You can't see it, and it's actually, it's I think we've pointed that out, at least on that one side, it's kind of useless because it faces a brick wall. So I'm fine, and I like Gary's, Gary's additional comment that it would depend on what was going to replace it.
Yeah, Nate, can you weigh in on this? Since you raised your hand, you're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, it took me a second to unmute. So the decision with respect to the bay window has already been made as part of the public hearing. So at this point, you can't undo that. The applicant would have to come back with a new proposal for demolition.
Okay. And I think either way, they'll have to come back with a new design. But you're saying the demolition will have to come back because they won't be able to meet the conditions if they keep the bay. Is there, and this is just a question, if the rest of the commissioners feel this way, is there a possibility to make a new motion to replace our public hearing motion, or can we not do that? And Gary,
I would prefer that the applicant wants to pursue the removal of that bay window further. They should come back with a new demolition proposal, realizing that we would not approve the demolition of that front extension. So, I'm kind of following up on what Nate said, is that rather than change a decision we've already made, the applicant come back with another proposal for demolition that addresses that bay window, if in fact they decide that its demolition is critical to producing a compatible and subordinate and functional addition.
Okay, Evan?
Sorry, yes, I wanted to, I guess, and maybe this is more a question for Nate, clarify whether or not a second public hearing would be required, because my understanding is that the demolition hearings are required when more than 40% of a structure is proposed for demolition or a front facade feature facing a primary street. So if they revise their demolition proposal to just include removal of the bay window and the rear portions, and it were under the 40% total demolition, I guess in my mind, that might allow us to not do a second hearing and instead just do another design review. So Nate, I don't know if you can clarify or if Jen has anything to weigh in on that.
Yeah, Evan, that's a good point. If their new demolition plan would be less than the 40% threshold, then they would not trigger a public hearing for that. So they wouldn't necessarily have to come back again for a public hearing on the demolition. However, they would need design review again with the commission.
Sure. Thanks for clarifying, Nate. Good question, Evan. Okay, so I think that we've discussed that element a lot and given the applicant ample feedback on the bay window. And it sounds like we're pretty much in line with what Evan's staff brief says. So I think it's pretty clear to the applicant, how they can move forward, and you can work with Evan on that. So would someone like to make a motion?
Kelly, this is Brad. I'll make the motion. I move to deny application 2021-COA-181 for the construction of an addition at 150 Race Street as per general design guidelines 2.29, 3.1, 3.5, 3.8, Country Club Design Guidelines B7, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Brad. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Oh, thanks, Erica. You beat Julie to it. All right, I'll call for the vote. Brad?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Kelly? Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the motion passes. So we will see you back when you've had time to address those comments. The next project on our agenda.
Kelly?
Oh, yeah.
She has her hand up. So would you like to just address?
Oh, sure. So I'm sorry, but after we move into deliberation, we can't go back and discuss these items, but you can work with Evan to make sure that any conditions and items discussion that was made in deliberation gets addressed. Thanks so much for your time. So the next project we have on design review is 2020-COA-187 at 301 High Street. And we've got Becca. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this project, as Kelly said and Graham mentioned, is at 301 High Street, which is just up the street. The original submission was approved by the Landmark Preservation Commission on the July 7th, 2020 agenda. And so this is a revision to that. It's not a whole new scope. There's just one small change that they'd like to make. So the original submission approved by the commission called for the lowering of a sill of an existing basement window on the south facade of the structure to allow for an egress window. As you can see, this is the south facade, and that window is what we're talking about. And the current revision, what you see before you today, would like to add an additional window on either side of this approved egress window with a large window well for light and access. So staff does have some concerns about this proposal to widen an existing basement window into a larger expanse of glass near the front of the house. While the guidelines do allow for flexibility on facades that are not readily visible, staff is concerned about the location of this change, which is near the front corner of the house. However, we do want to note that there is an existing stucco wall that obscures the changes from being readily visible from public vantage points. So the design guidelines list 4 factors to consider when determining if a level of change is acceptable for exterior changes. And Kelly kind of stole my thunder in listing these out last time, so I'll be brief. But the 4 factors are the impacts on the character defining features of the building, the impacts on the preservation of a structure's overall form and mass, the visibility from public vantage points, and the significance of the structure, noting that a property with a high level of architectural significance on all 4 sides. This is not an individual landmark. So staff was looking at all of those factors and then also considering guideline 2.14, which states maintain a pattern and proportion of historic window and door openings. E, avoid enclosing a historic window or door opening or adding a new opening. And F, do not replace an original opening to accommodate a smaller window or door, or increase it to accommodate a larger one. More flexibility may be appropriate on a facade that is not visible. So as this proposal would be adding 2 new openings to the south facade, which may be visible from the public vantage point. At this point, staff is recommending denial of the revisions to this previous approval. And just up here is an example, you can see from the street that there is that stucco wall that does obscure it.
Thanks, Becca. And I'm sorry I stole your thunder. I did think that was applicable to the bay window discussion.
No, I thought it was very appropriate and I appreciated it.
So I was happy that I just read it in your report. So are there any questions for staff? No. All right. Is the applicant present, and can we promote them to presenter? So while we're working on promoting you, when you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. If you'd like, you could share your video as well. And you have up to 10 minutes to present. Please start with your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Kristen Park, 4111 East 18th Avenue in Denver. And I just want you guys to carefully look at those photos. As you can see, there's a historic stucco wall on the corner of the property, and that's going to remain. There are lots of vegetation, and you just can't see this. These windows in the that allow southern light into the basement. You can't see them from the street because of the stucco walls, and that's why we thought it was appropriate to present this to you. We on our previous presentations, we really tried to keep all of our openings and really tried to not to change anything on the historic part of the building except for this proposed basement windows. And I guess what I did try to do is pick up on the second floor, the grouping of 3 windows, and bring that down to the basement. So thank you for taking a look at this. And Becca pretty much explained it all very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Are there any questions for the applicant? No. You answered mine during your presentation. I couldn't recall whether that stucco wall was historic or not. So sounds like it was, or is, I should say. Anne, did you have a question?
No.
Gotcha. I saw you unmuted. All right. Well, then thank you for your time. Are there any public comments? Just a reminder, if you're joining us via computer, please use the hand raise function.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay.
So that's a no.
Not many comments today. All right. Then let's move into deliberation. What did everybody think about this?
Kelly,
Brad.
this is Brad. I'll kick it off. I mean, I just looked at the guidelines, and I think that this, I'm in agreement with staff's recommendation. I think it's pretty clear about, not enlarging historic openings and align a new basement window, looking at 2.182. So I just don't see this meeting the guidelines, I guess, to summarize it quickly. Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Gary?
I agree. I completely support the staff's recommendation for the reasons both stated in the report and the ones that Brad just made.
I see a lot of shaking heads.
Staff report reminded us too that the window is still being made larger based on the original submission, right? So that sill is dropping, but in the original size. So I agree also.
Well, it sounds like I'm the odd man out again. I actually thought because of that historic stucco wall obscuring your view from the public right of way and the fact that it's aligned with the existing windows on the second floor, I found this to be acceptable because 2.18B says align a new basement egress window or expansion of an existing window with other windows and features on the facade. So I know that was highlighted as something it doesn't meet because this is an egress window and an egress window doesn't have to be that wide, but it also says or expansion of an existing window. So to me, that means more than just egress windows. But I'm the odd man out, so that's fine if everybody's in agreement with the staff report. Okay, who wants to make the motion then?
I can make the motion.
Thanks, Anne.
I move to deny revisions to application number 2020-COA-187 for the basement window alterations at 301 High Street as per design guidelines 2.14 and 2.18, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thanks, Anne. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Julie. All right, I will call for the vote. Brad?
Aye.
Graham?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Kelly? Nay. All right, so we have everyone was in favor of the motion except one vote, which was myself, Kelly Wemple, who was opposed. So the motion still passes and the application is denied. Okay, the next project on the agenda is 2021-COA-169 at 401 Race Street. Brittany.
Can you hear me? Great. So we're staying within the Country Club Historic District, and this application is for retroactive approval for vertical wood siding on some bay window additions to an addition staff administratively reviewed and approved at the rear of the structure, alterations to the site, and a new shed structure. So this is 401 Race Street here in the photographs that you see. This is the primary facade on Race Street, and then you have a view of the secondary facade on East 4th Avenue. And this structure does have 3 street frontages. The primary street is Race Street, a secondary street is East 4th Avenue, and then another street is East 4th Place. So we will be going through these slides now. So this was, I say existing, but this was the site plan prior to all the work that has occurred at this structure. So 401 Race Street is a contributing structure to the Country Club Historic Districts and has been undergoing renovation since early 2019. Landmark staff administratively approved a rear addition to the structure, as well as a pool in the rear yard, some alterations to the site work, and then the commission has also reviewed an overheight fence for this property and some light fixtures for this property. So it's had a number of reviews by staff and the Landmark Preservation Commission. As such, if the commission approves this project today, this new COA number, which is 2021-169, will supersede all those prior approvals. So our inspector has one permit set to inspect off of when he goes out into the field. So this is the site plan that was approved by Landmark staff. So the site plan here is showing a new front walkway that was intended to be blue sandstone. It's in a pretty straight path, which you can see here. There is that pool in the rear, and then there was also a pool patio. That pool patio was approved to be a blue sandstone by Landmark staff as well. And then you can't, the mechanical units are not shown on this approved site plan. So that is another retroactive approval that the applicant is requesting approval of today. So this is the as-built site plan. You can see a straight path for the front walkway. However, the materials have changed from that approved blue sandstone to a smooth finish concrete with a brick inlay. And then the pool patio is also changed to a smooth finish concrete with a brick inlay. The configuration has changed slightly, but not significantly. So staff are still in support of the rear patio and will have a minimal visual impact on the surrounding historic context. And then I'm actually going to annotate these plans because I feel like that will show it a little bit better. So over here along where Race Street starts to curve around, because this is a 90-degree angle, there was an existing mechanical unit, and then the applicant added a new mechanical unit. Both of those units are screened by a low fence that does block their view from the public right-of-way. As there was an existing unit here, staff do feel that this is appropriate location for it. Due to all the frontages of this property, it's very difficult to place everything totally on the rear where it's not visible from the public right-of-way. And then the applicant did screen that with a design similar to the fence design that is located along East 4th Avenue and Race Street that the applicant used to, that the commission approved for fencing for this property. And I do have pictures of that to show you later on. So this is the front facade of the structure. There are no changes proposed for the front facade, but as I previously mentioned, the commission did review and approve all of these new light fixtures that are shown on the front facade. what we're talking about today is this rear addition, and in particular, these bays on this rear addition. So Landmark staff had previously approved these bump out bays on this addition to have horizontal wood siding, and the as-built conditions do have a vertical wood siding. So we're not actually looking at the addition. It's already approved. We're just looking at the material cladding on those bump out bays. So that's one of them. We'll go through the elevations here, possibly. It's not letting me change the slides. There we go. So this was the approved bump out bay, where you can see that that horizontal siding and the Landmark stamp there for those approved plans. This is the East 4th Avenue elevation. And again, we're talking about that's a terrible circle, the cladding material on this bay here, which is vertical. And then also on the rear elevation, there are two dormers, one here and one here that had that vertical cladding material applied to it. So those are all of the alterations that we're talking about, the cladding material being changed. The applicant also had approval for wood replacement garage doors. So the garage doors weren't historic, and Landmark staff approved a wood carriage house door, and a steel roll-up door was actually installed on the garage door. So we are also the applicant's requesting retroactive approval for those different material cladding on the garage door. So again, this is just the approved plans. You can see that wood carriage house style door and that horizontal wood siding. And then additionally, the applicant constructed a shed structure on the property. This shed structure is the pool equipment room. It is located at the rear of the property along East 4th Place, and it does have the same vertical cladding that is used on the bump out bay windows of the structure. So now I have some photos to show you of all these alterations that were done. So here we have the steel roll-up doors that were installed by the applicant. This is the only bay that is visible from the public right-of-way with that vertical cladding. It's very difficult to notice the profile of that vertical cladding. And then Kelly actually asked about where the venting is on this structure. So it is right here. So that is the venting that I reference in my staff report that needs to be shown clearly on the plans because it's not currently on the plans. Here you can see that this is the driveway with that concrete and brick inlay that was approved by staff. And then the applicant just changed the front walkway to match that same material cladding that was used on the driveway. The Country Club design guidelines do talk about differentiating the walkway material and the driveway material. However, the walkway and the driveway are on two different street fronting elevations, and you will never see them together. So whilst they're not differentiated, you don't really see them collectively as one unit. So it is very noticeable which one is the walkway and which one is the driveway. And I don't think it will cause confusion there. So just here, you can see the roof of the shed structure is a very low profile structure with minimal visibility from the public right of way. And it will be mostly screened by this wood fence that was approved administratively by staff. Initially, staff was very concerned about the vertical cladding material and the footprint of the shed because it is the roof actually and the footprint of the building actually does accommodate a tree that is on the site. So initially when we received this application, we were very concerned about that configuration. So we actually went out and did a site visit and noticed how minimally visible the shed structure was from the public right of way. And East 4th Place is not a primary thoroughfare through the Country Club Historic District. Is primarily used to access 1925 East 4th Place, which is a one structure within the Country Club Historic District. So this even though this is on a street fronting facade, it's not a highly trafficked street. So initially we were concerned, but once we conducted our site visit, we noticed how minimally visible that structure was. So staff are recommending approval of the proposed as-built conditions with the following conditions: that the electrical panels be painted to blend in with the wall facade as that is noted in plan, and that all venting is shown in the plans.
Thanks, Brittany. Are there any questions for staff? Okay. Can we promote the applicant so they can present? And you have up to 10 minutes. Please unmute yourself and start with your name and address when you're ready. And if you're talking, I think you're still on mute.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Great.
Yeah, my name is Carlos Alvarez. I am the architect in this project from Alvarez Morris Architecture. Our offices are at 141 South Broadway Street, Denver, Colorado. And we don't have much to add to the staff report. We're in agreement with all of that. And we're also in agreement with the conditions to the report. And I would, if there's any questions, I would love to answer them. If not, like I said, we're in agreement with the staff report.
I think that's a record for shortest presentation today. Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? No. It looks like we're all clear. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments on this project?
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. All right, then let's go ahead and move into deliberation. Is everyone in agreement with the staff report?
Madam Chair, this is, I am in agreement.
Okay, was that Julie and Brad? You said that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm in agreement as well.
Great, I see a lot of nodding heads. So I don't think, yeah.
I just want to weigh in again. I'm always unhappy when we find ourselves approving something that is not with the guidelines that came up as a violation. And it's not that I wish people to undo work, but there's a process here. And every time we do this, I feel like it sort of sends us down a path that things can be done that are not up to the guidelines if you build them first and then have them come up as a violation. And so I understand that the shed can't be seen, but I still feel that it's worth making the comment that this is not really the right way to proceed in a historic district. If you, especially in this case, the applicant clearly has gone through the process before and knows what the process is and has been diligent about the process, but things just get built. So that's my statement.
Okay, thanks, Anne. I will just mention that I think the staff report outlines that this is meeting the guidelines, so I'm not concerned about approving it considering it's meeting the guidelines. It's not uncommon that we review something even prior to construction beginning that might have like a couple items that are a maybe that we still find to be acceptable. And like this shed structure, I think that could be something that, you know, had we reviewed this in advance, the staff report probably would have been the same, but we would have had that discussion about, oh, is the fence going to block it, you know, from view. So in my mind, I do appreciate your comment and I'm not refuting it, but I think you mentioned that you thought it doesn't meet the guidelines, and I think that it does based on the staff report. Is that And feel free to, if you want to make a comment. No? Okay. All right. Well, if we're all in agreement with the staff report, then who's going to make the motion?
Madam Chair.
I can make the motion. Oh, go ahead, Mayor.
Nope, it's all you. Go ahead.
All right. I move to approve with conditions application number 2021-COA-169 for the site work alteration material cladding change on the addition, bay windows and dormers and new shed structure at 401 Race Street as per Country Club Design Guidelines B4 and B6, Design Guidelines 3.2, 4.6, 4.19, 5.3, 5.16, and 5.17, character defining features for the Country Club Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. Paint electrical panels to blend with the facade as noted in plan and show all venting on plans.
Thank you, Brad. Do we
I'll
have a second?
Yep.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, I'll call for the vote. Brad,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Erica,
Sorry, aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Kelly, aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the project is conditionally approved. Okay, the next project on the agenda is 2021-COA-175, and the address is 235 Cherokee Street. So we've got Crystal.
Yep. Let me just get control of this screen. Okay, great. So here we're looking at the property at 235 Cherokee Street. That's located within the Baker Neighborhood Historic District. It was built in 1904 according to the assessor's records. However, it does show up earlier in the 1890 to 97 Sanborn maps. The garage appears to have been constructed sometime between 1929 and 1937, according to the Sanborn maps. The primary structure is a simple one-story brick building with a flat roof. Here you can see where the small proposed addition is for this structure on the site plan. And to the right are existing photos of the property showing the front facade, driveway, and garage, as well as the north facade. So here you can see the demolition plan for the site and where demolition will occur on the primary structure and garage elevations. Approximately 15 feet of the north wall of the primary structure is proposed to be removed to add this small 64 square foot addition, as well as an original window opening to be removed with this demolition. The existing front door will also be replaced. And on the south elevation of the primary structure, one non-original window is to be removed and the opening enlarged to add a new window. And on the garage elevation, south elevation, they are proposing to remove 11 feet 8 inches of the wall to add in sliding glass doors. So here's some the alterations to the primary structure, which includes adding a small side addition that extends out 4 feet 3 inches from the primary structure to expand the existing kitchen and dining area of the primary structure. The new addition, they're also proposing to add a steel canopy over the front door entrance and replace that existing main entrance door with a new solid wood door and storm door. 2 new skylights are also proposed to be added to the roof. You can see those at the rear elevation, but also on the roof plan that's in the application. And you can also see that they'll be adding new kind of more modern windows, aluminum clad wood at the addition. And the addition is proposed to be clad in a charred wood lap siding with a 4-inch reveal. And then here in the photo, you can also see the one window opening that they are proposing to remove that is original.
So additional alterations to the south elevation of the primary structure include that new window to be added where the other one's going to be removed, and they're going to enlarge that window opening. All windows and doors on the structure in the photos appear to be non-original, so staff has no issues with that. Alterations to the garage include new sliding glass doors with a steel canopy over them. And then also they will be adding 2 new condensing units and exterior lighting on the garage and the primary structure. So the Baker neighborhood RNO did submit a letter of support yesterday, which we did receive and forward on to you, but we just received it yesterday. I believe they did recommend aligning the addition with the stepped parapet of the structure. I'm not sure if the applicant had spoken with them about actually doing that. I don't see that in our plans. So maybe you can ask the applicant that question. So due to the size of this zone lot and the layout of the existing structures on this zone lot, staff is supportive of the application just because there's a limited amount of appropriate locations to put an addition and still provide yard space. And the only other places that might be appropriate for an addition is if they added a second story. So therefore, staff is supportive of the current proposal and recommends approval.
Thank you, Crystal. Are there any questions for staff? No. And I should probably mention I had to turn off my video because I'm a nursing mother, but I am here and listening and watching. So I'll go ahead and turn my video back on later. Okay, could we promote the applicant? And when you're ready, please unmute yourself and start with your name and address for the record. You have up to 10 minutes.
Hello, everybody. I'm Larry Sykes. I'm the architect for the project. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think Crystal really summed up everything as well as I can say. I think probably the only thing I have to add is just that from a zoning perspective, or just to kind of elaborate on her comment, the existing rear setback of the primary structure is about 21 feet, and the rear setback requirement, because this is a non-alley lot, is 20 feet. And so that was a major reason why we pursued a side addition. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to add on top of that. Oh, sorry, one more thing with regards to the Baker Association's note about the parapet in their letter. That wasn't changed on this application because this application was submitted to Landmarks prior to the Baker neighborhood review. They just reviewed exactly what I sent in to Landmarks. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Larry. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I wanted to just confirm. Yep. Oh, go ahead, Brent. Man, we're on
no,
the
go ahead.
Same timing today.
Yeah, go. Your turn to go first.
Perfect. For the cypress, for the siding that you're proposing, you had one of the dark, real even colors. Is the intention to just leave that as is, kind of pre-finished as a material that will weather naturally?
Correct. Yes.
Thanks.
And my question was just a question to follow up on the Baker neighborhood's comment about stepping the addition roof. Have you given that any thought? Do you have any thoughts about if that's something you want to pursue, or are you more intent in keeping it like it is right now?
So yeah, to clarify a little bit, the current parapet, addition parapet wall height is just below the level of the step that the existing parapet height step that it engages with toward the east side of the addition. What they were talking about at our meeting with Baker neighborhood was stepping down the parapet a bit more so that you could really continue to see that existing stepping parapet line. And I would greatly prefer not to do that just from the technical standpoint of how low that parapet wall currently is related to where the top of the opening for the addition would need to be. There would be just a sliver of brick on that lower section of the parapet wall, and so of the existing parapet wall. And so I think it would be very difficult to maintain that intact while creating the new opening. So the intent is to just cut out the brick sort of from floor level to the top of the existing wall. And
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you for your time. Are there any public comments for this project? Please use the hand raised button.
Don't see any hands raised, which surprises me because I know neighborhood, someone from the neighborhood is on, so, but no hands raised.
Okay, then let's go ahead and move into deliberation. What did everybody think about this project?
Kelly, I'd be curious to know what other commissioners think about the siding. I've installed it before, the cypress, the charred kind of traditional siding material. And I think, you know, the lap, the reveal, a lot of traditional components, but it's kind of an integral color component there also, which is the only spot that we really have anything to say about finishes. And so, you know, I know it's a durable material, but it is one that is maybe not traditionally historic. So I was just curious of what others thought about that siding material for the addition. It's pretty stuff, by the way. We've used it on a number of projects.
Gary, I see you smiling. What do you think?
I was just having happy thoughts. What I was thinking was that given the nature of this addition, it's sort of a it's not using any traditional forms that are part of the original character of the building. And so using, I guess I'm trying to say it's kind of an innovative addition. It is subordinate because it is a small size. And so the use of a non-traditional cladding material, I think in this case, is appropriate because it does pay reference to historic character with horizontal lap siding and the narrow reveal. So I think it's fine.
I see a lot of nodding heads. Erica, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I am fine with the material for the addition. I think Gary summed it up nicely, so I don't necessarily want to repeat that. And if we still want to talk about that, I can wait, but I did want to raise the question of the windows on the addition. I do have some concern about, while I agree that it's clearly contemporary, which is one goal, I'm not quite sure it really meets the design guideline of 3.2E, designing windows and doors to be compatible with the primary structure and surrounding historic context, particularly when visible from public vantage points. And I think my main concern is the large fixed window A that we see on the north side there.
Good point, Erica. Did anybody else have concerns about the window proportions and operation?
This is Brad. I did not have concerns just because I think this small addition is so of its time and it's subordinate. It's held back. To me, it felt appropriate, and I appreciated what Gary had to say about the materiality of it as well. I think think it is appropriate given its scale and function in this case. And it really speaks of being of its time.
Does everybody agree with that? Just nodding heads. Okay. Well, I agree with what's been said. The only thing I'll add is we did, I'm going to say recently, I think it's been maybe in the past 12 to 18 months, I can't remember, in Baker approved the use of shoshukiban, which is also charred wood. So I'm not suggesting that that's a precedent for this because I believe that was an ADU. So that was at the rear of a property. So this is a different, you know, application, but I just wanted to point that out, that I think because we have approved it once before, and it does essentially kind of look like it's painted lap siding of the exposure we typically approve, I'm comfortable with it. Well, if there are no further comments, who would like to make the motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make this motion. Scroll to the right part of the page here. I move to approve application number 2021-COA-175 for the addition and alterations at 235 Cherokee Street as per design guidelines 2.14, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, 3.8, character defining features for the Baker Neighborhood Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thanks, Graham. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Gary. All right, I will call for the vote. Brad.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Julie. Gary.
Aye.
Erica.
Aye.
Anne.
Aye.
Kelly. Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the project is approved. Okay, moving forward, our next project up for design review is 2021-COA-170, and it's at 2645 West 34th Avenue. And Brittany will be presenting the project.
Our next project is for a retaining wall replacement within the Potter Highlands Historic District. This is a mid-block property. And then you can see the existing retaining wall, which is a timber wall in the street view here. It was a little difficult for me to get clear photos of this, but there is also a timber planting bed in front of the porch, and then the porch foundation is concrete. I don't have the best photographs to show that, but that is the current existing configurations. So this is the existing site plan. Here you can see that timber retaining wall and the straight walkway that the applicant is proposing to replace. This also notes that timber planting bed just in front of the porch, and the applicant is proposing to replace all of that with a new CMU block retaining wall that will be clad with a brick veneer. It should be clearly noted in the plan set that it is a standard brick, and that the brick will be painted to match the existing brick if the commission does decide to approve this application. The retaining wall will have a large apron at the sidewalk in it. This is a configuration that the commission has previously reviewed and not approved, as typically the commission likes a very simple retaining wall design up at the sidewalk edge. Due to the apron in the retaining wall design, we believe that the applicant is needing to Z-jog the new walkway, and the new walkway will be a modular paver in a herringbone pattern that you can see pictured here. And then that timber wall and planting bed in front of the porch will be removed, and the porch foundation, which is concrete, will be clad in brick. Again, that should be confirmed that that is a standard brick size, and the brick will be painted to match existing. So this is primarily just site work, and we are recommending approval with conditions, and the conditions be that all brick veneer is a standard size brick and painted to match the existing brick, eliminate the apron in the retaining wall design, and then eliminate the Z-shaped jog in the walkway and use a straight path, because historically pathways and walkways from the sidewalk to the front door are located in a straight path. I do see that I did not put my conditions in the suggested motion, but they're just above that suggested motion if the commission agrees with those conditions.
Thanks, Brittany. Are there any questions for staff?
This is Erica. Brittany, did you have any concern about the difference in material of the retaining wall, the stair treads, and then the walkway itself?
I did have a few concerns over that. It's not atypical, I guess, to have different material for your retaining wall, and then your walkway be another material. But if the commission feels it's too many complex materials, you could request that those be simplified.
All right. Any other questions? All right. The applicant could be promoted. Please go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready and start with your name and address for the record. You have up to 10 minutes.
Oh, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Grant, and thank you, Landmark Board and Brittany, for taking the time to review this with us today. Brittany basically touched on all of the, basically all the items that I think we need to discuss. However, in part, our main reason for adding this modification is that the existing timber wall is failing, as well as the existing timber planters up against the house. And if you could maybe go back to that last picture, that would be great. As you can see, it's also a very narrow walkway and the entrance to the house. And so part of our main purpose for adding that apron was to try to, we don't think that the timber kind of matches anything historically on that block. And so what we are trying to do is convert it back to a material, brick, that would be complementative to the house. And then also on this block, it also has, there's very few houses that have this retaining wall right out up against the street. And by adding this apron, our thought was that we could actually visually open up the approach to the house and complement more of that historic Highlands architecture with this design as well. So, and yeah, and then also as far as Erica, comment to your comment about the different materials. We were planning on using a tumbled antique brick that the idea was to try to make it complementative to the historical architectural elements of the house as well. So I think that is all I got, except for the fact that we were trying to use, on the risers for the steps, we were going to match the brick wall that we were proposing replacing the timber wall with, to keep those materials the same. And then also the caps on the walls and the treads on the steps would be red sandstone to match and complement the historic red sandstone sidewalk. right next to it. So I think that is all I got for right now.
And I'm happy to provide another comment or two. This is John Enser. I'm another one of the applicants and an occupant of the premises here on 2645 West 34th. Another reason that, we thought the apron was a fitting design, as Grant mentioned, it's a very narrow pathway through the steps and the risers are pretty tall. It actually kind of becomes a challenging, like if you're just carrying groceries or have, we have a new puppy and just squeezing the two of us through the path at the same time. It's fairly narrow. The jog in the path allows us to widen the entrance without the need to widen the steps and adjust the footprint of the patio. We think that, the color choices and material choices do as good a job as possible of matching the style of the neighborhood and in particular houses on the block, as Grant mentioned. I think that's all I have to add.
Thank you. And for the record, John, could you provide your address? I think I know what it is, but just in
yeah,
case.
it's 2645 West 34th Avenue.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any questions for the applicants? No? Okay. Thank you for your time. Are there any public comments? And please remember to use the raise hand function at this time.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
Brittany has her hand raised physically.
Yeah, do you have some recap?
So a tumbled brick is not a material we normally approve, and my application materials indicate that it will be a summit brick, and I don't recall that being a tumbled brick. I thought that was a smooth modular brick. So I do have some concerns over the applicant stating a tumbled brick would be used, as that's not something we typically allow.
Could we actually get the applicant back to
Yeah,
that?
Let me do that. Hold on a second. Oh, they're already back.
Oh, great. So Grant or John, whoever wants to address that, is there an option to go with the smooth brick, or do you have your heart set on this tumbled brick?
Hey Kelly, this is Grant speaking again. And so thanks for the question, Brittany. Just to clarify, the material with the tumbled brick we were talking about for the horizontal surface leading from the stairs to the porch. The smooth brick that we're referring to would be the brick that would be used for the retaining wall to match the vertical smooth brick on the house. And we were going with that the tumbled paver brick on the horizontal pathway as a decent replacement for the failing flagstone that's there already. So does that clarify the material choice as well?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure the materials shown in your application were accurate representations of the materials to be used.
Yes, I just think the pavers are for the horizontal and the smooth summit brick is for the vertical brick retaining walls. And that's what would be painted as well to match.
Could I do a follow-up question to the applicant about materials? So could you also clarify, I think you were saying that the step treads would be the same as the flagstone cap on the retaining walls. So it would be flagstone pavers, is that correct?
Correct, yes. So they'd be the same thickness as the caps that are on top of the wall.
The treads, not the risers.
Correct. The treads would be flagstone, just like the caps on top of the wall. So that plane would all be seamless as part of the design. And then the vertical risers that you would all see, in walking past or from the street, that would all be that smooth summit brick that would be painted. Does that clarify you guys' question? Thanks for the question.
Yes, thanks.
Any other questions since we've got the applicant back? No? Okay. Thanks for the clarifications. Okay. Then Brittany, did you have anything else to add before we deliberate? Nope. Okay. All right. What does everyone think? And we don't have Aaron today to look at the site work, so that's a bummer. Julie, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually like it. I agree with staff, though. Let me get my thing up. I was a little worried about the Z-jag thing in the front lawn, and I was wondering what others thought about that. A part of me thinks it's really fun, and I appreciate the creativity, but given the design guidelines, I was kind of curious to what others thought about that.
Julie, I think my bigger concern was the apron. I feel like the the steps that are there, the flagstone that exists has a really nicely tooled face that's pretty typical of historic flagstone steps.
Yeah.
I think there's at least a pretty good case that those stairs were originally not only based on neighborhood context, but that historic material there, that nice, it is narrow, and I understand that that's not 100% convenient, and that a new puppy might make that exciting for sure. So noted here. But I think that the offset further up and away from the sidewalk and the right of way is less impactful to kind of the streetscape there. And I felt like the narrower entry sequence was maybe a spot to focus on. So I'm curious to hear what others think as well.
Erica, what did you think?
I was agreeing with staff about concerns over the apron and the jog and the walk. And in looking at those existing steps, it's kind of a shame to get rid of those as well. So I'm a little heartbroken about that, but I'm open to redesigning this, but I do have concerns about the apron and the jog and the walk. I'm also a little concerned about the different materials, as I alluded to earlier. Just we have brick, painted brick, flagstone, and then the kind of tumbled brick as the walk material. And I just find that kind of a complex mix that is a little jarring from the historic context and for the building itself.
Any other thoughts? Brad, what was your take on it?
I think I actually agree with staff. I think that the jog is atypical of the neighborhood. I think the apron is atypical of the neighborhood. So I think those are two areas that I agree with the staff report. And I was just looking, the tumbled brick sidewalk seems maybe, I was kind of trying to look to the guidelines here to support my thoughts, but just to put it out there, it seems like that was an element that it was adding a lot of complexity to a fairly simple design, which was successful previously. So I didn't actually see that as a benefit. And like I said, I was trying to look at the guidelines and see if there was anything that kind of helped that point of view. But I think it adds more complexity to this than it's needed.
And what was your thoughts?
Well, I agree with the staff. It doesn't seem as if retaining the existing stairs is actually on the table. It wasn't part of the staff's recommendation. And also the house itself is quite simple and modest. So I think just the straightforward stair coming straight out, it could be wider to deal with the puppy issue here. And just simpler materials would probably be a better design. I do want to actually compliment the applicant, though, I think on a very ambitious and very nicely presented big idea, which maybe is not quite the right idea for this house, but it just has lots of imagination in it and so forth. And I'm sure that there are other great things that they're doing, but I think this one just needs to be simpler and closer to what the existing configuration is.
Well said, Anne. I would agree with what's been said. I tend to agree with the staff report, and I seem to think that I was a little on the fence with this one because I think the design is so nice and I like it, but I'm just not sure it meets the guidelines for the reasons that were pointed out in the staff report. And it's my recollection that when we've reviewed new sidewalks to a main entry, that we typically do, although the jog in the sidewalk doesn't bother me, I don't think it looks bad, we typically do require that they, if we have evidence where the original path was, that they maintain that location. So I'm comfortable with that approach. I didn't have any problems with the materiality though. Erica, I know you had pointed that out and asked for some feedback. So did anyone else have comments related to the materials? I think we've talked about the design. No? Okay. Well, if there are no further comments, it sounds like we've come to an agreement. Who's going to make the motion?
I can make the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Graham.
You bet. I move to conditionally approve application number 2021-COA-170 for the replacement retaining wall, walkway, and porch foundation cladding at 2645 West 34th Avenue per design guidelines 2.34, 5.3, and 5.12, character defining features for the Potter Highlands Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. Confirm that all brick veneer is standard size and will be painted to match the existing. Eliminate the apron in the retaining wall design and eliminate the Z-shaped jog in the walkway and use a straight path.
Thank you, Graham. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brad. Erica, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I get a little out of order with Robert's rules. So if this isn't the appropriate place, but I'm just wondering, I don't believe on the drawings that they actually specify the material of the pavers on the stairs. And I thought that if I'm correct on that, that we should have one further condition that be specified to be flagstone to match the retaining wall cap.
So I think step tread pavers. I'm just looking at the drawing. It says new walls and steps to replace failing existing timber wall, step tread pavers, concrete riser with brick veneer and flagstone cap, path and step treads to be sand set pavers. So that actually makes it sound like it's pavers and not sandstone. So maybe that is a good condition to add. Would you like to make a friendly amendment?
I would.
Okay.
I will accept the friendly amendment to clarify flagstone caps for the stairs. I think is that the basis?
Do we need Erica to state
it? So I would like to make a friendly amendment that the drawings reflect that the step treads will be flagstone to match the flagstone cap of the retaining walls.
Accepted.
Thanks, Erica. And Graham, you accepted. Brad, do you accept?
I do.
All right. Then if there's no further discussion on the motion, I'll call for the vote. Brad,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Kelly, aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the motion passes. So the project is conditionally approved. And you can work with Brittany to meet those conditions. Okay, so this is our last project on design review up. It's 2021-COA-171, and the address is 2540 California Street.
And Graham, you have to leave, right?
We need to jump out. We almost snuck them all in, but sorry to have to leave for the last one. We'll catch everybody next time.
All right, thanks, Graham.
You bet. Bye.
So our next and last application is for demolition of an existing alley structure in the Curtis Park Historic District and replacement with a new infill single-family residence with detached ADU. So here is the existing alley structure. It's had several modifications over the years, and the period of significance for this portion of the Curtis Park Historic District is 1870 to 1891, and the assessors date the structure as 1909. So it is outside of the period of significance for the Curtis Park Historic District. But additionally, staff did evaluate this just a little bit further to ensure we are comfortable with the demolition of the structure. And we feel that with all the alterations to the structure with those front and rear additions, that it just doesn't reflect integrity of the era and also of the reasons why this portion of the Curtis Park Historic District is designated. So we do feel that demolition of the existing structure is appropriate. So the structure that will replace it is proposed to be a new two-story single-family residence with a detached ADU. Here you can see the ground plan comparison. The proposed structure will align with all of the adjacent structures on the block and have a similar footprint to the adjacent structures on the block. The proposed structure is 18 feet wide, and then it is 57 feet and 6 3/8 of an inch in depth along the lot. 18 feet is slightly narrow. However, this is a 25-foot lot, and due to setback requirements of the current zoning code, this is about as wide as you can get on a 25-foot lot in the city of Denver. So it will have a setback similar to the surrounding structures and a porch projection similar to the surrounding structures. This is just the ground floor plan, and you can see that the proposed ADU is separated from the primary structure by 15 feet, 7/8 of an inch. This is almost the minimum separation that is required between those two structures. However, I do want to pause on the ADU footprint as it's slightly L-shaped. I don't have a better way to quite describe it, but it will have a little bump out on the first and ground floor of the ADU on the north side of the lot that we do have some concerns with, and that's more how that bump out articulates the exterior facade and not so much it actually having that bump out. But you can see that a full width porch is proposed, and then a straight walkway is also proposed to the structure. And then the primary structure will be located totally within the front 65 of the lot, and the secondary structure in the rear 35 of the lot. This is the second floor, and then this proposal will have a rooftop deck. That rooftop deck will actually be accessed by a exterior spiral stair at the rear of the building that you can see shown here. The rooftop deck is located on most of the roof of the structure. However, this building will have a slightly high parapet to provide screening for that rooftop deck that we'll see in elevation here in a second. And then again, you can see that kind of L-shaped footprint of the proposed ADU. The ADU will also have an exterior stair that will then also have a kind of exterior storage space. So here's the primary elevation of this structure. It is based on the Italianate form within the Curtis Park Historic District. This structure is proposed to be 27 feet tall, which is in typical ranges of heights within the Curtis Park Historic District. And the applicant does have comparisons within their application. However, they didn't actually note the height of any of those structures in their application materials. So I went and found those heights for the commission. So 2544 Stout Street has a max height of 28 feet. 2542 Stout Street has a max height of 28 feet. 2815 Champa Street has a max height of 24 feet. 2649 Champa Street has a max height of 32 feet, and 2655 Champa has a max height of 33 feet. And then finally 2922 Champa Street is 27 feet. So it's right there within typical ranges within the Curtis Park Historic District. They will need an administrative adjustment for height and bulk plane, as you can see here. That is very common within the Curtis Park Historic District for the edges of the building to be just outside of the bulk plane. So we are recommending that the commission recommend approval of that height and bulk plane as well. In terms of the design, it's very typical Italianate. We just have one comment on the porch design, is that we feel that the porch slope is quite low compared to what you typically see within the Curtis Park Historic District. Usually there is not as much void space between the top of the roof and the bottom sill of the windows. So we are asking that that be restudied slightly in the phase 2 design detail. Here is the secondary elevations. The brick will wrap significantly on the side facades, but we will look at that in the phase 2 design detail materials. Again, this building will have a somewhat high building parapet to provide additional screening to that rooftop deck. And you can best see that here in these side elevations where they're showing where the roof level is, and then that 3 foot 1 inch tall building parapet. We don't feel that it makes the building look like it has a, I guess the best way to describe it would be a high forehead, as the building parapet is significantly articulated, and there is a lot of detailing on that building parapet at the top, at least where the brick portion is. So we don't feel that it's creating the appearance of that high forehead. Window proportions on this building are pretty typical of the Curtis Park Historic District with those tall narrow windows. But here you can see that the secondary facades will have a square window on the ground floor. This will have minimal visibility from the public right of way, so we're not very concerned with that, that window proportion being irregular. And then they're actually using the building to enclose that circular stair somewhat, so you won't be able to see it that much from the public right of way, which we do feel like that is a good way to address those stairs, as we're seeing more and more of these kind of used as accesses to the rooftop deck. And we liked how this was camouflaged within the building massing. Similar articulation on this facade as the other facade, so I won't spend much time on that. This is the rear facade of the primary structure. So again, this building will have that high parapet. It's not as decorative on this rear facade, but due to the limited visibility from the public right of way, we weren't super concerned with that lack of articulation on this rear facade, and we felt that it was appropriate design here. So this is the ADU elevation. Here we have the alley elevation and then the interior lot facing elevation. Staff do have some concerns about the articulation of the design on the ADU. We are concerned that with the kind of L-shaped footprint and that storage unit space On the exterior stair, you're getting a really narrow second floor door and a really wide ground floor door, which is a little awkward in staff's opinion. And then also the applicant has adjusted this second floor banding based on staff's comments, but we just still feel that the second floor banding is not quite in the right position, and we do have some concerns over where that banding is. Typically within the Curtis Park Historic District, ground floors on secondary structures are taller than the upper floor, so the facade should still articulate that rhythm. We just don't feel that the ADU is quite doing that as best as it could at this time. And some of these adjustments were made on staff's comments, but we feel that maybe they are not the best comments that we have ever provided to applicants. So we do have some concerns over some of the exterior expression of the floor to floor heights on the ADU and where the second floor banding is. So that is mostly it. I do have some comparisons within here, and these are these are some of the structures that I mentioned that are within typical ranges of heights within the Curtis Park Historic District. I do have all of those listed in the staff report, as they're not actually listed in the applicant's packet. And then here are some just isometrics of the design. So we are recommending conditional approval of the phase 1 mass form and context, with the condition that the roof slope of the porch be adjusted to hit just under the second floor window sills, as that's more typical of Italianate full width porches within the Curtis Park Historic District. Redesign of the exterior horizontal banding on the ADU to create a more proportional ground floor to second floor, with the ground floor still expressing a taller floor to floor height than the second floor. And then restudy of the door proportions on the ADU to be more compatible with one another. And those would be those man doors on the interior facing elevation. And then finally, we do have a letter of recommendation for this proposal from the Curtis Park RNO.
Thank you, Brittany. Are there any questions for staff? No? Okay, let's get the applicant on the phone. So you have up to 10 minutes. Please start with your name and address for the record, and you can start whenever you'd like. And don't forget to unmute yourself.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for your time, and thank you, Brittany, for the nice summary of the project. My name is Brian Martin with Studio Slate Architecture. My address is 1630 South St. Paul Street in Denver. I just want to add to some of the things that Brittany said about the project and the process of how we've gotten here. I think it's been a good collaborative process between myself, Brittany and her team, the neighborhood district, and the owner of the project, who will be moving into the house upon completion. And there's been just a really solid dialogue of back and forth and adding to some of these levels of detail that I think they're hoping to see within their neighborhood to be more compliant with the design and overall feel for what they're after. I do have one question about clarification on the front porch roof, and to see if that's a question of raising the actual height of the porch itself versus just increasing the slope of the roof. I certainly went back and looked again at the other examples, and it looks overall as though the front porch itself tends to have a higher roof. So once again, when I'm finished here, I'll just look for some clarification on the staff's recommendation for that piece. As far as the ADU is concerned, I think we're very wide open and amenable to these various recommendations to continue exploring the banding and the door alignment and some of those proportions on that back volume in the next phase. And additionally, I don't think that we have any hangups with the other recommendations per the staff's direction. So we're excited to continue taking feedback as we move from phase 1 to phase 2, and then from there through the building review portion as well. But yeah, I don't have too much more to add other than we're excited to continue the process, and I appreciate all your time.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? No? All right, everything was clear. Thanks for your time. Do we have any public comments on this project? And please remember to use the hand raise function.
Yep, Keith Pryor has raised his hand. Let me, allow to talk. There we go. You can go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
Hi, Keith Pryor with Curtis Park Design Review Committee. We did review this project, and they did make a lot of changes to really bring this project forward. We definitely do agree with staff's recommendation on the conditional approval of the 3 conditions, but we definitely do support this project and feel like it's definitely very fitting within the mass and context of Curtis Park Historic District. And we would really like to see the commission approve this for the mass and scale and move this forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Any other public comments?
No, I don't see any other hands raised.
Great. All right, then let's move into deliberation. And Brittany, could you clarify the condition that the applicant had a question about?
Sure. I think if you look at page L3.2 of the applicant submittal, you'll see what the applicant was referencing about how, particularly on the streetscape, that many of the porches within Curtis Park are a bit taller. And then if you, I didn't include these pages in my presentation for some reason, but then if you look at page L4.2, there are 2 Italianates with a full width porch. You can see that those porches are also a bit taller as well. The slope of the roof is pretty minimal, so perhaps it's not quite maybe adjusting the slope to increase that slope, but maybe adjusting the height would be a better option than what I initially recommended.
Okay. All right, let's move into deliberation. Excuse me. It sounds like the applicant is okay with the conditions as outlined, and we will see this back for design detail later. Were there any, what were your thoughts? Are we all in agreement with staff?
This is Erica. I am.
Thanks, Erica.
Madam Chair, I am as well. I think this is the beginnings of just what I think is going to be a really nice project.
Thanks, Julie.
I also agree with staff, and I know we're doing mass form and context, but as a friendly comment to the applicant, I think the relationship between the siding portion and the brick portion could use some consideration, and I'm looking at L2.2. And I can see in the plan that the siding is offset from the brick in plan, which is a great beginning. But weirdly, and again, we're talking about detail, and I know that that's coming up next, but just to kind of give you the heads up, weirdly, I think that elements are being carried through that actually don't work between the 2 of them. And you might start with the parapet and think about maybe stepping down the parapet a little bit on the brick and on the siding side. And I also think the banding that is great in the brick kind of doesn't make any sense in the lap siding, where it needs to be amplified, and the relationship of the windows. So like I said, I think where the openings are, how the massing is great, but I look at it and I'm a little bit curious about how this building was built at the same time and how those 2 pieces actually relate to each other. So I think maybe that would be something we would be looking for in the design detail to be clarified a little bit.
It's a good point to give them a heads up. And while we're talking about the materiality, knowing that it is going to be reviewed in our next design detail submittal, the R&O letter did mention that they had recommended increasing the amount of brick on the sides. I guess Brittany, do you know if this changed since the RNO reviewed it?
I'm pretty sure that is reflected currently in this and how much the brick is wrapping around, which is 21 feet, 8 inches, which is pretty significant. Usually the most we've gotten people to do is 15 feet, and sometimes it's a lot less.
Yeah, and that's actually why I brought it up, because I think based on other projects that we've reviewed, I think that what the applicant's showing is meeting our guidelines. And so although, you know, if you want to add more brick, we always love that, but I don't think personally that hinges on the approval. So any other comments? All in agreement with the staff recommendations?
So to clarify, then I think we'd want condition 1 to be restated to say adjust the height of the porch roof.
Yes, good point, Erica.
Well, I can go ahead and make the motion then. I move to recommend an administrative adjustment for height and bulk plane per section 12.4.5.3 of the Denver zoning code, and to conditionally approve application number 2020-COA-171 for the demolition of the existing alley house and phase 1 mass form and context at 2540 California Street as per design guidelines 4.1 through 4.5, 4.7, 4.8, 4.15, 4.18 through 19, character defining features for the Curtis Park Historic District, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the following conditions. 1, adjust the height of the roof of the porch roof to hit just under the second floor windowsills. 2, redesign the exterior horizontal banding on the ADU to create a more proportional ground floor to second floor, with the ground floor still expressing a taller floor-to-floor height than the second floor. And 3, restudy the door proportions on the ADU to be more compatible with one another.
Thanks, Erica. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Brad. If there's no further discussion on the motion, I'll call for the vote. Brad?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Erica?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Kelly? Aye. All right, so we have a unanimous vote and the project is conditionally approved. So we will see you back for design details. So that ends our design review agenda for today. We do have one discussion item. And I think, Jen, if you wanted to kick this off.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix my screen so I can see you all. Great. So you guys have had a whole lot of long meetings lately, and our current bylaws say that if there's a public hearing, then there can be no more than 6 design review items unless approved by the chair. And then for non-public hearing projects, you can have up to 8 unless additional are approved by the chair. So what I wanted to talk about first is about efficiencies in meetings, because a lot of the meeting discussions have gone on really long, and I think that we've all been working towards efficiencies for sure, to some success and not success. One of the things that we did as staff, I talked to everyone about trying to truncate their presentations to be as efficient as possible. And I think that's seems to be working. There's been a bit more condensing there. Emily and I have been trying to be more efficient about moving people over and reducing the time there, as well as saying whether people have their hands raised. I'm still trying to pause because people aren't raising their hands, which is surprising me, but want to give people ample time there to react. And then also we tested something out this week where we arranged the agenda based on kind of not reverse complexity, but sort of. So we grouped them by historic district, and then we went with more complex, less complex within the historic district. So you had two complex two complex in Country Club, and then one less complex in Country Club, that kind of thing. So trying to shift the conversation so that you don't get caught up on the more simple conversations at the beginning of the meeting and then extend out way too long at the end, that kind of thing. Because I know that's something that you guys have mentioned to me in the past or during retreats of trying to shift how we do things. So we're trying that out. It's we may keep shifting it around. We'll see how it goes. Today seemed to go pretty well. But wanted to talk with you guys about other efficiencies that you think that we could do to streamline these projects. Oh, and another one we had was asking you guys to send us, if you have questions about a project, send those to us in advance so we can address them so that you guys can all hear that during the commission meeting presentation. So, anyone have any additional streamlining we could do?
I'll think about that, Jen, but I did notice today's agenda and how it went, with the degree of difficulty. And I didn't know that it was deliberate, but I think it worked really well. Because really, truthfully, by the time you get to 4 o'clock and 4:30, it's so hard to concentrate on another one that's really difficult. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
I agree. I think that worked well. I mean, as evidenced by the fact that it's not 4 o'clock yet, and all of our meetings lately have been much later than that. But I don't think that I would want to change the bylaws yet. I think that working on these efficiencies is probably the way to go because we don't want to get too backed up in approving applicants' applications. And so another thing is, I think it's really tough on the applicants when we go this long because it's impossible for people to schedule their day around this when they have no idea what time they're going to be seen, which has always been a challenge. But when we go back to in-person meetings and the web building is like closed, starting at 5 o'clock?
At 5, yeah.
Yeah, I think that I'm hoping that the efficiencies can get us down to that point, but I thought today's agenda organization was good.
One other thing, if you guys feel like any commissioners are starting to veer off topic at all, you guys are welcome to jump in and just, because there are times when I see faces, I'm not going to call out anyone, but I've seen faces where people are like, why are we talking about this? So jump in and say that. Don't be shy about it because these are your deliberations. We're not going to jump in and say it because these are your deliberations. So
I do have a question about, you had mentioned to send comments to staff in advance. So I tried to do that today.
Not comments, questions.
Or
we don't want comments.
That's what I meant. Questions
Yes.
and comments. My bad. Another foot and mouth situation that I've
No worries.
So I tried that today to send my questions in advance, and I was wondering, is it helpful to copy all the commissioners on it or not? And the reason I ask is because I didn't copy all the commissioners because I was concerned that it would spark conversation, and I didn't obviously want to do that because we need to do that during deliberation.
Exactly.
But I wasn't sure what the.
Yeah, I think it's probably best not to copy everyone. If you have a question for, Brittany or Crystal or whomever specifically about a project, you can ask them a question. Don't provide any commentary of like, I'm trying to decide whether we should be doing X or Y. It's just ask your question because we don't want to, we're not meant to be, the only You all have the staff report. Everything has, our comments have to be public to you unless we're answering a question. And then even then we're going to share what the answer to that question is during our presentation. So,
okay.
Which is why I corrected you sent comments. Just
yes,
for the record, you didn't. I
were
saw them.
Questions, I swear.
Yeah.
And I think every staff member brought them up. So you all know what the questions were. Yeah, Gary.
I have a question that's, if there's a project that we have had some prior input into, which would then require us to be recused from activity as a member of the commission, can we still make a comment during the public comment phase as a member of the public? No. Okay. I was just.
No, I don't believe so. Nate, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you're supposed to be recused because you're supposed to have left the room. So you're not hearing the questions and the comment and the deliberation. And in a virtual setting, we obviously aren't leaving the room. We're making you an attendee and then moving you back.
So that would be different than if we were actually an applicant.
Correct. But so here's the weird thing about being an applicant. We've had some commissioners as applicants in the past who are solo practitioners or are a small group, a small firm, and they have presented the project themselves because it's, well, actually, it's really only when they're a solo practitioner. So Doug Walter presented, he was previously commissioner and he presented. And so because he's a solo practitioner, he couldn't leave the room and also present at the same time. But other commissioners like Kelly's firm worked on a project that she was intimately involved with, but she couldn't present it. She had to leave the room and her colleagues had to present it.
That was tough.
Yeah. So maybe the answer is work as a solo practitioner, but I don't think so. It's hard.
Well, my question more had to do with as if besides being commissioners and practicing professionals, if we were active in a advocacy organization, and that advocacy organization has a position on a project, could we recuse ourselves from the commission, but then speak on behalf of that organization? And you're saying no. Okay.
That's a really good question. That's a different question than I thought you were asking. I don't know the answer to that. I would think you probably could present the position of the advocacy organization, but I don't know.
Nate, do you know?
Yeah, so if you are choosing to recuse yourself from the commission for a particular hearing, and you are either the applicant or advocating on behalf of some advocacy group, you could do that. It's probably better to put yourself in that position if you're an actual applicant, because when you're just advocating for a project, it could have the effect of creating the appearance of impropriety. And you know, we've been challenged on that before.
Right.
If you're the applicant, that's one thing, but if you're just advocating on the part of a project, I think, you know, you have to ask yourself, you know, do I want to be a part of the commission, or do I want to be a part of this advocacy group?
Okay, good. I thought as much, but I just wanted to ask, make sure that I was interpreting it the way it ought to be. Thanks.
The only other thing I have to add about making our meetings more efficient is if anybody has any feedback for me, please let me know. I am totally up for constructive criticism. And I know sometimes I let things go a little off track because I'm always trying to make sure that we are all on the same page, because I worry so much about motions failing. So I normally am always asking, like, wait, are we all in agreement here? And I know sometimes that can take too long. So if you have any feedback for me on how I can run things more smoothly, I'm all ears.
You have a thankless job, Kelly. Said by someone who has a thankless job.
I was gonna say.
I'm gonna change that. I want to thank Kelly for how well she does.
Well, thank you, Carrie.
Yeah, you do a great job, Kelly.
Well, I need to apologize to staff because I realized that I put my foot in my mouth in our last meeting and made a statement when I was trying to kind of work with an applicant who was very frustrated. And I definitely didn't choose my words wisely. And looking back at the audio on YouTube, I guess I said something like, I know the process is frustrating. And I did not intend to, make any implication that the landmark process is always frustrating, because I think what you guys do, you really do help the applicants. I mean, I've been an applicant, and even before I was on the commission, and I've always had a good experience, and we hear a lot of great feedback from applicants. But what I was trying to say was, I understand you are frustrated with the process because you've been back here 3 times and delayed for 8 months. So just wanted to say to staff that we do really appreciate all the work you do. And I know it's not always easy, and I apologize for my poor choice in phrasing. I would love to say it'll be the last time. I hope it is, but I'm not perfect.
No, it is, but thank you.
You know, I remember that situation, and I just thought you talked that guy off the cliff. I just thought you did a great job.
Well, I just wanted the conversation to move in a more constructive way. So that was what I was trying to do.
I think the commission over the years has had occasions where individual commissioners have said things that they shouldn't have said. So I can't remember anything in our history, but many years ago, there was one commissioner who actually said, "What part of no don't you understand?" to an applicant.
Okay, let's not do that.
No.
Jen, is there any progress on getting another commissioner?
Yes, there is progress on getting another commissioner. So I have another question I have a technical question for our administration, senior management for CPD about something that technology aspect that I need to get some more information about. And then, so Brittany and Becca and I have been interviewing people, and I kind of paused it when my husband's health was all over the place and I needed to focus there a bit more. And he's doing great, which is awesome. That said, I have been very delayed in in moving everything forward. But Becca and Brittany and I are meeting later this week or early next week, to talk about what our recommendations to the mayor's office would be. And hopefully we'll have someone this summer. It always takes, sometimes it's 4 weeks, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 8, sitting in the mayor's office, just because the mayor's got a lot going on. So stay tuned. It's moving forward. It's not like it's dead. Sorry for the delay on that. And I do appreciate everyone's patience.
Good to hear.
I just wanted to say I thought today went really well. Like, I feel like you guys were more fresh because like the denials are at the front, so you could tackle it. I don't know if that was just and then it seemed to go really smoothly. So hopefully things we're doing on the other side, like help it go quicker for everyone.
So Crystal, I appreciate Steph. You and Brittany and Abby and everybody just does such a great job with their reports. But I did, in fact, as we started going along today, I'm like, wow, Crystal's report was really good. It was really short. And Brittany, wow, what's going on here? So now that I know you're doing it deliberately, I think you guys are doing a great job.
Thanks. I did, speaking of potentially returning back in person, I know last time you guys had questions about that, and I said, oh, by our next meeting, I'll have more information. I don't have more information because the meeting's tomorrow. So I was off by a couple days. But the city council is aiming to go back in person sometime in June. We don't know when. We will follow suit sometime after that. We're still trying to put they have technology and a budget for it. We don't have a budget for it. And so we're trying to figure out what this is going to look like. And it's that part that we're trying to understand. So landmark staff we're slowly, and all CPD staff are slowly starting to return to the office in June. Our situation is a little weird because our office is moving, and so we don't really have a place to go right now, and we won't until June 21st. So we won't be back in the office until then, but the rest of CPD would be earlier in June. So we're kind of, I suspect we'll be back in person in July or maybe August. You guys only have one July meeting, if you remember, because you had 3 in June to avoid the 4th of July holiday week. So I suspect maybe that July meeting or early August would be the time we would go back in person. But stay tuned. I'll keep you guys posted on whatever news I have. And I do think that there will be efficiencies when you guys are in person again, when you're actually seeing cues for each other.
Yeah, I think a lot of the delay is waiting because people are worried they're going to talk over each other.
Yeah, Graham and Brad were on it today. That was really funny. All right. Well, let's see how this goes with efficiencies, and we'll bring it up again if we need to later. Okay. Oh, one really quick thing. The agendas, it looks like our backlog is easing, so that's great. And that's not to say that it won't happen again. It's just that it's not happening right now.
It's Preservation Month.
And it's Preservation Month. Woo.
Yeah, Jen, your quote posted today.
Sweet.
Yay. We have an Instagram if you guys follow us.
I do.
That's where we're celebrating this year.
Well, I see Anne already hopped off, so maybe I'll just close the meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.